Welcome back to the Hypo Driver channel. Today we're going to continue our series on Cosworth's Pi Toolbox 14 plus and above worksheet, their advanced worksheet, or workbook really. So parts 1 and 2, we covered the driver tab and the tire data grip tab, as well as just some tips on getting started. I really would encourage you to watch at a minimum that first one. But there's a ton of great tips actually in both those that will apply even these other workbooks. And today we're going to focus on the next two tabs. So what's labeled here is the throttle brake analysis, and then we'll talk a little bit about the split webs and setup tab. So what I've done is, again, I've just literally opened up Pi Toolbox, new workbook from the template for the advanced workbook. And I've added a little bit of data here. So it's some different data than we've used in the past couple sessions. In this case, I've got a little GT3 cup data. Please don't make fun of my lap times. None of this is particularly great. And then a little bit of AMG GT4 data. Again, using VIR just because for me it's a track I know well and it's easy. And then also added GT3 cup data here under the all laps task down below. So the first thing I'm going to do to just simplify things a bit is you can actually load multiple outings and just look at one at a time. So I'm going to right click on this Mercedes one and do hide outing. So now I am just looking at the 911 GT3 cup data. And you'll notice, among other things, that displays like this where you have color-coded squiggly lines, when you have more than one outing, the lines all change to the color of the outing, which means every channel has the same color. So by kicking it back to just one outing, we now see the colors per data channel. So let's kind of walk through this just like we've done in the past, kind of display by display or pane by pane, if you will. At the top, again, we have our channel or our lap selector. So again, I can pick from the two open outings, kind of which lap I want to look at. So by default, it's going to my fastest lap. And if we start kind of going, well, we also just, again, I've covered this in the previous sessions, but we have this kind of play button where you can literally kind of walk through your lap like a movie. And over here, you have an ability to increase or decrease how fast it plays. And this little diamond thing changes directions. If you hover over it, it'll kind of do that. So you could, for instance, play yourself through turn 1, hit the button, play backwards through turn 1, and kind of go back and forth. So maybe we start with just doing that, actually. So let's just, I'm going to start at the beginning of the lap here, and I'm going to go ahead and just hit play. And what I want you to keep an eye on more than anything is these displays down here, these kind of status lights, if you will. And so, you know, these are, again, visually a really easy way to kind of pick up that something has happened. So this one is telling you whether ABS is active. The cup car doesn't have ABS, so you should never see that come on. And then if you're locking up, which wheel is locking up. So we'll go ahead and just hit the play button, keep an eye on that for a second. And you'll see as we're approaching turn 1, I'm locking up a couple of wheels there. We'll kind of look at that in some depth. Couple more wheels, and then again I can hit this button and I can literally play it backwards. So this is kind of going back from exiting turn 1 back through turn 1, and we'll just go ahead and stop it there. So you might have also seen over in this top center the brake pressures. So again, get an idea from your brake bias how much pressure is going to individual wheels. So, you know, just real quick, I'll actually run through that again one more time, maybe a little bit slower, and just keep an eye on the brake pressures. Let's actually kind of fast forward a little bit here. And, well, we're going backwards. That's why. Let's do it the right way. Always helps to be playing forward. And again, you can see the brake pressures going up fairly evenly. And you can see on the right here, this is actually giving me info on that. So here's the brake bias kind of in the setup. And down here, we've got the actual live brake bias. So, you know, cup car, you can adjust the brake bias on the fly. I've got a little toggle switch on my wheel that I use to adjust that. But here you can see it's kind of the default value. So Back to walking through the displays. We'll take this one first. I'll blow it up, but one thing you'll see is the font's kind of small, but you can change that. So, I'm a little older. I like bigger fonts. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to do properties. We'll go to appearance, and I'm going to just change the font to 10 point and also change the header to 10 point. There we go. A little bit easier to read. So what you see here is some very basic metrics that are really important, right? So time at full throttle in seconds, percentage of your lap at full throttle, time on brakes in seconds, percentage of the lap on brakes, and then your coast time. So, for here, we've only got a few laps, and frankly, there's a lot of scruffy laps in there. But yeah, you want to be looking for, as you can see here, my fastest lap clearly had the most time at full throttle, and highest percentage at full throttle, as well as the lowest time on the brakes, not counting one of my very early slow laps there. Okay, and then coast time, good thing to keep an eye on, and we'll look at that in a couple of displays as well. So just general metric overview, good way to look at a lot of laps at once. Down here, what we've got is longitudinal slip. So we will blow that up, and what you're seeing here is if the wheels are locking up. So if you're getting basically sliding, you're going to get these blue colors, this light blue or dark blue, depending on the amount of it. So as you can see, this is VIR again, start finish line, coming into turn one. Here, is probably where I first hit the brakes hard. I got a little bit of wheel lockup, got a little bit more as I'm trail braking in. And then this is interesting that I have some on the way out of the corner. So maybe we're going to look and see a little more of what's happening there. So I'll just go ahead and just click on that spot on the map, and we'll make that go slower. And as you look down here, there's no braking going on. So this is actually under acceleration. So that could be a couple of things, and we've got some other things we can look at later, but that could actually be maybe a curb, or I've got a wheel kind of coming up off, kind of bouncing off a curb, and so it's showing as the wheel slowing down relative to the fronts. Perhaps that's also, it could be wheel slip, although ideally wheel slip should show up in the other colors. So going back to this again, wheel spin rather, not wheel slip, but basically under acceleration, rear wheel spin in this case is going to show up as yellow, orange, and red, depending on the amount of it. So again, going through my lap, we come down to, here we are going into Oak Tree. So this is interesting that we have a little bit here, probably as I'm downshifting, going back to throttle, and then coming around Oak Tree, you can see a fair bit of wheel spin as I'm trying to get back on the gas. And then again, we've got that similar thing that we saw exiting turn one, which is the front wheels kind of slowing down relative to the rear. So that could be wheels bouncing off the curbs, or perhaps it is wheel spin or rear wheel spin that's just kind of showing up as calculated as slowing down. And then the next display over is throttle coast brake. So a very nice visual way to look and see where you're full throttle, where you start braking, where you're coasting. So easy way to think about this is the yellow is part throttle, green is full throttle. The pink is partial brake, and then the red is heavy braking. I think greater than 65 bar, I think, is where we're at on that. I have to look at the math channel again. It's all in there. In fact, we can go look at the math channel real quick. That comes right up. So here you can see throttle over 98%, or braking over 65.4. And in this case, that is percent. So that is 65%, because you can see down here it's based on percents. And then anything in black is coasting. Okay, so you could see I'm basically coasting through turn 9 here. And that's generally because you don't want to brake there, but I can't continue to keep it on the throttle because the car will push off the racetrack. So that's not unexpected. And then similarly down here, this 11-12 complex where you brake going into 11, but you don't want to obviously be braking and over slow for 12. So you kind of let off the brakes, roll some speed through, and then do a little more braking before you pick up the gas. But what's cool here is I can see, all right, so first of all, I have this area right in here where I'm coming off of full throttle, but I'm kind of lazy dragging the gas, and then I get to the brakes. So you can see this is where I actually start braking, and again, you can compare a couple laps. So for instance, if I want to unhide my Mercedes outing, I can now look at both laps side by side. So you can actually see Mercedes, I have ABS. I'm actually braking later, although again, I have this kind of lazy pickup of the brakes where I go from less than full throttle to less than 65% brakes to 65% brakes, and then I'm modulating. So we'll go ahead and hide that again. And then again, here you can see, kind of trail braking all the way around. This is where I start picking up the throttle. So this is probably early, right? So realistically, I want to wait a little bit longer, get the car a little further rotated before I pick up the throttle, and then I can actually commit the full throttle sooner on my run from 1 to 2 here. So again, kind of a nice graphical way for you to see particularly how you're doing your throttle and brake manipulation across a lap. Down below it, we have our pedals. So I'm going to look at a couple of these in combination. So this one down here in the lower left, what you're seeing is coasting, accelerator, brake, and then pedal overlap. So places where I have both gas and brake at the same time. So, for instance here, you can see I'm kind of overlapping. We'll zoom in a bit. I have that lazy release of the gas, which isn't good, and also that lazy uptake of the brake. It would be much cleaner to just stay in the gas, come off the gas, get hard on the brakes. So it's a technique thing that I should work on. What you're actually seeing are just the blips on the downshift. So that's actually the car auto blipping, so that doesn't really count. Up on the upper right here, what we're looking at is wheel lockups. Okay, so we saw that before with the kind of indicator lamp display. Now we've got it up here. So, again, as I start braking, what do you see? I start seeing, in this case, both front wheels start to lock. I get a little bit of rear lock. And I guess, what did I do? What did I do wrong? Well, that's where this bottom display comes in. So I'm going to blow this one up a bit. This is throttle and brake aggression. So this is the derivative of the throttle and brake traces. So it is how fast I'm hitting the gas and how fast I'm hitting the accelerator. So you can see going into the brake zone, in this case, I kind of ramp it up a little bit, actually breathe off a bit, and then I go really hard on the brake. And right about here is also where my lockup starts. So I need to work on modulating my brake pressure, putting in a little less, I would assume, initial pressure, and then, probably starting, maybe starting a little earlier as well. So that's what's going on. And then below that, this kind of center section, I really like this. This is the timer of over the lap, how long has a given wheel been locked up. Okay, so you get a sense more to which wheels am I locking up the most. So it's interesting in this case, what you see is right front, right rear are locking up the most across the lap, right? So that is, again, if I dug in more detail, that is probably going to be a lot of braking while turning. And on a left-hand turn, the right wheels are more unloaded. They're starting to lock up. So something to kind of think about technique-wise, modulating my braking while turning. So I think that is everything on this tab, or on this worksheet rather. And so again, this is a really useful tool for critiquing your braking technique, looking for areas when you're coasting, when you don't need to be coasting. And then again, also looking at your throttle technique. These big kind of spikes of brake pressure, or spikes of throttle as well, all can upset the car. You can ignore some of these because they're They're actually the auto blips, but this is what you want to look at. Okay, now we're going to move to the next tab, which is labeled Splits, Web, and Setup. And so this is pretty neat. A couple of things I like here. So first, my biggest complaint about the light workbook is they didn't include split reports. So here you'll see that they included two displays for split reports. They're both showing the same thing. So I'm going to show you a couple things that are going to be useful. So first thing I want to do is go ahead and unhide my Mercedes. Now I've got two. And these colors tell you what the display is connected to. So the top color in this case is red, which tells me it's the iRacing load fastest and select task. But then the bottom one tells me which lap within that task. So in this case, it's a 911. These are both connected to the same, but I want to go ahead and connect this to my AMG. So I just clicked on the box and then I can kind of pick the AMG. So now I've got the two side by side. And so I can look at both. Again, these are very different sessions, different cars, different numbers of laps. But again, I'm going to start doing sector comparisons. I cover this in great depth in the finding lap time video, but try to find your sectors with the minimum time in a given sector, and then go dive into that particularly because it may not be your fastest lap. So a good example is over here, lap 6 had a really great sector 1. But I threw it away in sector 3, probably had a spin or something. So again, those are your split times. Over on the right, this is all of your setup data. So I like the way they divided this up. So this is all your front setup data. Again, in this car, there's not a ton that's actually configurable. There's fuel level and kind of roll bar settings. Actually, roll bar settings isn't either. Here you've got left and right of car settings. And then here you've got the rear car settings. So again, for the Cup car, there's not a ton you can change. But if you've got another car that's got a lot of setup info and you want to be able to drill in and say, okay, how was the car set up during that session? Or, again, if I want to pick a different lap and look at this lap after lap, I can say, okay, lap 4, it's got to be something you can change dynamically. These are typically settings you do on the way out. And then the last one, which I think is super cool, this just it's kind of a neat way to apply this display. You can embed a web browser inside any worksheet in Toolbox. So what they did here is they embedded Discord. So I'm not going to do it here, but you could actually log into Discord and have a Discord chat going kind of while you're looking at data. So pretty neat, particularly when we get to live telemetry or real-time outings and you're looking at data live. You could actually be chatting with people about kind of what you're seeing as you do it. But you can put anything in here. Maybe you want to go to youtube.com/hypodriver. And you could watch videos about this while you're doing this. So pretty cool. Again, kind of like having that functionality in the workbook. So that is the throttle brake analysis and the split web setup worksheets. Next time we'll dig into dampers. That was one of the big things you're getting with Plus and Above subscription that wasn't in Lite, is that the damper channels weren't available in the Lite license of Cosworth Toolbox. So I hope this is helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.